With a bub on the way, Rabs needs a spell. To him and to M, the team wish them well. His Pies are still flying. They return to the top, while the Suns made it 8 Darwin wins on the hop. The Eagles secured their first win of 25, while the Swans, D's and Freo kept their seasons alive. And whether Rabs has a little boy or a girl, one thing's for sure, there's another feral pie in the world. I am Will, I'm replacing Rabs this week, and of course we are on the midweek, Rub, and I'm joined by three of the very best from the Triple M stable, including St Kilda Hall of Famer Lee Montagna.
Hello, Wilbur, nice to have you in here, and yes, all the best to Rabsy. It's a very exciting time in his life, so looking forward to it, and unfortunately, you're right, we're going to have another pie supporter in the world, but it's very exciting times.
2010 Premiership player Daisy Thomas.
Yes, good to have you on, Will, but I'm not sure what you've got against a new baby now. A Collingwood supporter that is not even born yet, and you're still
really
starting
like
beef.
We don't need more pie supporters in the world. Very good.
And Triple M's number one newsbreaker, Damien Barrett.
Hello, Will, or Weddings Will, as I refer to Will. He had a period of a time about 2 or 3 years ago. He was away from the Saturday Rub for about 8 out of 10 weeks just to attend weddings. So Weddings Will.
Yeah.
Wedding season is good fun.
I've got 2 this September as well, which I'm really flat about.
We're too old for the wedding stuff really these days, but it's always
very
very
popular.
exciting.
40th and 50th.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The transition comes. What about your Saints, Joey?
Poor.
I know I don't want to start really with a negative,
Yeah, I
but
know.
Or football.
I was teasing Rabsy's little baby.
Yeah.
Possible. It could be worse. It could be a St Kilda supporter. It's tough. It is tough going being a Saints supporter. I did have a gut feel. I think you tipped West Coast on the show last week.
Not surprising, I got it
came
right.
with you. I had a bad feeling about it. I thought more so that West Coast were due to win a game, but no, that's all right. We know where the Saints are at. They are rebuilding. I know Damo keeps trying to say
Where are they at?
they're the same as the Brett Ratton era, even
might
though
be
they've
worse.
gone from the third oldest to the third youngest.
there we go.
Well,
Hang on.
It's a
Yes,
what
Ross.
does champion
Oh,
Data
yes.
say about him too,
it's a
Joey?
rebuild.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
It's
we're
a
the third
rebuild
youngest, Ross. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Ross wants you to say that Rui's going well. Yeah, Max King's not far away either, Joey.
It's a rebuild that's still halfway through. They've got a long way to go, but yeah.
Good to see your mate Minnie, though.
Yes, it was good for Minnie.
Yeah. Did you text him?
I did. I said,
good man.
you can have a beer and enjoy, and he said, "Coupler." Was all he wrote back. So good on him.
He deserves
a beer. Oh,
Yeah.
and he's gone. It's been a tough initiation for Andrew McQualter, not just with like the West Coast Eagles as a team, and they've had injuries to senior players. It's a bit of a rabble, but there's been some, obviously Adam Selwood, and there's been Adam Hunter as well earlier in the year, Oscar Allen situation.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of off-field stuff for Andrew McQualter in his first year that probably, he certainly wouldn't have expected to have to deal with his first-year coach.
And obviously walking in and losing a Tom Barras even before he got to play a game, and then not having access in the last month or so to Jeremy McGovern and the uncertainty around him. We'll touch on that in the news segment because that has become an awkward situation and one that will now go into the AFL protocols when it comes to what happens next to Jeremy.
Do you fire up your bubble bath? Two-man's got his spa. I'm not sure what Ethan has as a
What happens in the
statistician,
Barrett
but
household? What
exciting,
happens in
though.
the Barrett household when Kangas win?
I was just glad that my 2 sons, who are now 21 and 19, both went separately to the game, and they actually experienced and got to witness firsthand a win, which might have been
one
7
too.
or 8 years since they last did.
It was just a sit and steer job, never in
wasn't it?
doubt.
I told you they were morals, didn't I, Dave? I said I knew they were morals. They were never going to lose.
That
Toby
was
picked their new favourite player.
Well, he was good even before that match-saving mark.
he
Yeah,
was.
I liked how way he played that game. So, yeah, there might be
You
some
declare-
green shoots there, Dave. Sorry.
You saying they were morals, though.
Yeah, I know. I really threw it.
I just sitting there watching you going, surely they can't find a way to lose this.
They tried, didn't they? But,
Well, Taranto missed that shot late,
Yeah.
which would have put him in front.
And what about your Blues? How are they where are the Blues at? I want to get. Where do you think?
Joey.
Where are they at?
I have 2 sides, and we shall talk about my
No,
pies.
we're talking about your Blues.
My Blues are in struggle town. Yes, they are really just in the muck, aren't they, with how they're playing. Sydney, I told you last week, were going to improve, though.
Say
There
don't
was
jump off the Swans.
plenty of opportunity for their ball movement, but the Blues, if they don't get it right, and if you start to match them around the footy in clearance and take away some of their defensive turnover game, they are playing some pretty average footy. We know that. So, yeah, it's disappointing because, again, I've said this a few times with the list they've got in the profile, and I think we probably have all overhyped it, thought it's better than what it was. At the moment, it's looking like, oh dear, if not now, but when? And I'm not sure when is. If that makes sense.
I'm with you on
Yeah,
that. No, there's just nothing to suggest that it's going to turn, and that's the problem. Yep.
Anyway.
Predictions to come, as well as fair dinkum or Fugazi, but Damo's news is next, including that Jeremy McGovern situation we touched on before. This is Triple M's Midweek Rub, thanks to BWS. Triple M's Midweek Rub, predictions to come, as well as fair dinkum or Fugazi, but Damo's news to kick us off. And first of all, Damo, the Jeremy McGovern situation.
It's worrying now, Will, because he will be in the officially AFL concussion panel, and that means there's an independent series of medical experts who will now effectively determine his future. Now, some players like Tom Liberatore have been through that and been cleared to play again, but others haven't, and this is where this concussion discussion has now reached. And obviously, some of the extreme cases of these panel outcomes obviously pertain to Angus Brayshaw and Nathan Murphy and others who have had careers ended on the back of an assessment by the same level of people. So round 8 was when he suffered his most recent concussion. For those who need reminding, it was that Jake Melksham moment where he just pushed him, well, I suppose used his body under the ball, and there was no match review office sanction for Jake. It was separate to some of the other players being pushed into contests, but it was another head knock to someone who has suffered them in the past and coming off what was a fifth season of All-Australian acknowledgement for Jeremy McGovern. It's an unfortunate situation on so many levels, obviously for McGovern himself.
Yeah, I think we sort of changed the way we look at this, Daisy, because right now, from a football perspective, it's a massive story. He's one of the West Coast Eagles' all-time greats, an absolute superstar, and we'd all love to see him play. But my first thoughts now go, but his brain health and his mental well-being for his future life is first, second and third priority. It absolutely takes precedence over playing a game of football ever again. So from that perspective, I just hope that he's okay in regards to the long term and nothing lingering too serious, because we've seen and we know enough now about it that has got to be the number one priority.
Probably becomes slightly easier whichever way this decision goes, because he is 33. You've had a really good career regardless. You've done it all. You've won a premiership, multiple All-Australian, as opposed to sort of your Nathan Murphys and your Angus Brayshaws.
Also, Dave, on that point, Aidan O'Driscoll, who didn't even get to play one game of football, having been drafted by the Bulldogs at the end of 2023 in a training session, I think it was even pre-Christmas, did not get to play one game of football. So that point I think you raise is a context to this angle. Yeah.
And hopefully the people around him, Joey, because when you have been in the system, he's 33, been in there since 18, 15 years as an AFL athlete in the bubble, it's sometimes hard to realise how much more to life there is once you step out of it. You think that is it in a bit, and once you get out of there, you do realise that, hey, this is a lot more fun than maybe you first thought. So we wish him all the best. Obviously, we're not sure which way that outcome goes, but no doubt they made the best decision.
Bailey Smith, we've known now and anticipated Thursday night at the Cattery, Geelong versus Western Bulldogs, Bailey Smith versus the Dogs. As it gets closer, it is genuinely big-time showbiz,
gonna be
box
fun.
office, marquee stuff, this. And the way that even he just, maybe with a bit of a theatre attached, decided to miss the main training session of the Cats yesterday. That is management, because he is coming off a knee, and they've done that regularly this season. But what a moment for, I think, the competition coming up Thursday night.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be must-watch eyeballs. Now, whether anything actually transpires on the field, we all sort of hope it does for the sake of watching, but even if it doesn't, just the storyline around the season that Bailey Smith is having, nobody could predict that he'd be second favourite for the Brownlow medal after missing all of last year, Days. And to be honest, I can't wait to see this game. I hope Libby goes and stands next to him and rolls him up. If nothing comes of his way, I hope Bailey Smith just does something to antagonise them, because he probably wants it. He probably wants some sort of angst in the game.
Take Norton's headband off.
Yeah, just do something. But I can't wait for this. I'm really looking forward to it.
This is the beauty of the sport, isn't it? We're an entertainment business. So for everybody who's saying, oh, don't flip the bird, don't carry on, it all becomes part of the theatre and the greater want to go and consume the game. I love it. And no doubt he's the type of kid that could potentially come out and have 35 and 3 and kick a goal after the siren and be the match winner. And then run around, doing the Mr. Bean to the entirety of whoever's watching. So it's going to be brilliant. Would it have been better if it was a bigger stadium?
I think
Ballarat
actually
5,000.
At Marvel, where they could boo him. Like, it's going to be all Geelong supporters.
Correct,
There'd be a lot of boos if it was the Western Bulldogs fans and all that. But there's no love lost between Bailey Smith and the Western Bulldogs.
There's not, and there's a feeling, though, that the Dogs, having, through Marcus Bontempelli, unusually firing a public shot on this, that they will just almost go out of their way to almost ignore him, which will also have an effect inside that complex head of Bailey's when it comes to this match. And you just don't know, though. It will bubble over, though, do you think, at some stage?
Some
won't you? I mean, Liberatore won't be able to help himself.
Someone
no matter
And
how
nor will
much intent he
Baslenka.
has.
Yeah. That's I can't wait for that.
Yep.
It's when he made the comments about Ballarat, and then Bonk came out and said, "Good to see we're still on Bailey's mind." I thought when they started to respond, it almost showed that, oh, hang on a minute, we can't let this go. We have to respond, which was very...
To get into his head.
Or to the fact that actually he's in their head because they had to respond. So another byproduct of it.
Days, the Tasmanian Devils, again, yet to even officially been given the ultimate licence to play in the AFL, but we're just assuming that they will get that approved through the stadium, and then 2028 will be their first year of AFL. Raise all that in the context of they are starting to put together their management team. They've got a recruiting boss, a list boss. They will probably late this year, early next year, identify a senior football manager. And then the coach, obviously, is the main piece. And I have got no doubt, and their focus as a starting point is Chris Scott. They won't be giving public narrative around this, but he is a person of number one interest to them. I believe he's open to it. He's contracted until 2026 at the Cats. He, just to remind people, he started in 2011 at the Cats. So, again, successful coach, going for a third premiership this season as coach, but he is their number one target. Do you like the potential mix around all that? And at that stage, he would have completed 16 seasons at the Cats.
I think they're going to have a nice option of coaches they can go for. So obviously, Kenny Hinkley, whether or not he's absolutely done with coaching, the way that looks. Nathan Buckley, I spoke about a bit last night on the agenda setters of if he's looking for another opportunity, how good that would be for him just starting fresh. And three big name coaches who are going to come in and give real relevance to that football side, who are going to set them up in a manner that should set them up for success in a probably more direct line than maybe we've seen with a couple of these other clubs.
Yes.
Probably the Gold Coast is the example. When you come in and you're not quite sure as to what you're going to get from your coach, it may take longer. So I think they've got a plethora of options. Derek Hind, obviously, there in a list management spot.
Yep.
A link to Collingwood, of course. So, I think they're in good hands if they do get the licence.
I spoke with Brendan Gale yesterday, and the contents of that are on afl.com.au. I raise that, Joey, because he does reference what Days just did, that the experienced component to the two most recent expansion clubs, Gold Coast and GWS, they went about it very differently. One has had a more sustained period near the top of the ladder, that being GWS, and they established themselves with more experienced players. Does that open the door for a Ken Hinkley, who may not want to be coach, but may want to be a football management boss or someone of seniority within a footy structure?
Yeah, I think absolutely. That makes sense. And I think they're going to go about it the right way. We all respect Brendan Gale and how good he is. So I agree. Chris Scott would be the first choice because he's the best coach in the league and he's been at sort of a regional club like Geelong Footy Club and done such a great job. But for me, a fallback option, I think that the Ken Hinkley, Nathan Buckley combination or something along those lines would work brilliantly as well.
And there's two other premiership coaches out in the marketplace as well without connections to footy clubs at the moment, Adam Simpson and John Longmire.
Is there going to be more of an openness and sharing of what went well at the Giants, what didn't? Because I felt like when the Giants came in, the Gold Coast Suns, it was very much, no, you do it your own way. We want no part in. We don't want to know what went well. We don't want to know what went wrong or badly. Is there more of a sense that the AFL is all on board to make this the best it can be and resourcing all of those?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point, Days. And by putting in Brendan Gale when they did, he's been on the ground now full-time for a long time in that context, which is a longer runway to entry than those other two
And when
clubs
those two clubs came in, no one really knew what could work and what didn't. But now we've got the test case for both of them to combine two of them and get a great scenario for Tassie.
And the requirement to trade the concession high draft picks that they will get for other players is already a change in that policy.
Is there still 100% guarantee it's going ahead?
No, not until the Tasmanian government officially signs off on the actual stadium with a roof. And forget the narrative around the cricket situation. I saw Cricket Australia again, and it's not the first time they've done that. They now don't want that stadium to have a roof. It's got nothing to do with Cricket Australia because the AFL has negotiated this with the government. And if it's going to happen, it needs to have a roof. And people can debate the merits of that, but without the roof and without the stadium itself, obviously, with the roof, it's not happening.
What percentage chance? Can I ask you? What percentage are you thinking that it'll happen? Like, are we still saying it's 90% chance, or are we sort of like, it's about 60, 70?
Look, I haven't thought about a percentage, but no, it's a fair question. I wouldn't be giving it much more than 78%.
Yeah, right.
It's not a gimme. It's not a gimme with what has been happening. Just a couple of other quick ones. The soft cap. AFL Commission met in Darwin last week, and just from what I've been told out of those conversations, there is a concession, at least internally at this stage, that the soft cap is nowhere near what it should be. And despite committing publicly to a certain amount of increase for 2026 and beyond, that number will be increased as well. So I'm not going to get too bogged down in this conversation with numbers, but they are finally realising that this is the one cohort in the entire AFL industry that has not been allowed to recover properly financially since the COVID days. Everyone else has flourished.
Yep.
One more. Sam Darcy, you went from the club itself basically saying he had an ACL at the time of impact a few months ago. He's close to a return, believe it or not. And when I say close to return, the club has yet to put an official time on that, but he's going to return sometime not too long after the bye, quite possibly, which is extraordinary given it went from 12 months to 6 months to 5 months to 4 months. And here we are within the same season itself, without operation, without procedure, going to return.
Is there a spot for him?
Gee, it's going to be a great boost. Like, he was one of the best players in the competition before he got injured. They've got so much going for them. I mean, Adam Rollo will come back. They've got Liam Jones, a pretty handy player who can come back if they need him. Yeah. And they've got, I think, 7 of their last 10 games are at Marvel or something ridiculous, where they've won their last 8 games. So there's a lot of boxes being ticked for the Western Bulldogs that this year they could be finishing top 4.
So his Bulldogs play Geelong, a huge game on Thursday night. We'll get all your tips later on. But up next, it's Fair Dinkum or Fugazi on Triple M's Midweek Rub with Joey, Daisy and Damo. I just got the halftime pep talk from Daisy. I'm ready to run through a brick wall here. We'll see how these go. Fair dinkum or Fugazi.
Tell our listeners what he said, yeah?
It's just process-driven, 5 minutes by 5 minutes.
That's it. It's half time. We don't want you coming out in the second half and doing bugger all.
With 3 goals up.
One question at a time.
One question at a time. We'll start with you, Joey. Despite sitting second on the ladder, it's official. The Lions have a premiership hangover.
It's coming from a Lions man. Is that
a little bit in that?
It's Fugazi. For one, I don't believe in hangovers, but I do believe that a premiership team just loses their edge a little bit subconsciously because they've already got their bellies full. They've already got the medal. But I'm not writing Brisbane off. I think they need to have a little blip and through at some stage this year just to find that little bit of edge back for the second half of the season. So I actually think this will be good for them in the long run.
Damo. Bailey Smith, we were just talking about him just earlier. His best performance in a Brownlow medal count was 10 votes in 2022. He will have already surpassed that in his first 9 weeks.
Good question.
Fair dinkum. Yeah, I mean, we obviously never know how umpires are going to vote, and I've got no doubt they do listen to media narratives, and sometimes those votes they give are catch-up votes on the narrative, and I just say that because I've watched that happen over the course of history. But look, he couldn't have done anything more, I feel, from an impact perspective. And what I think is vote getting, and what I will believe will be vote getting, is he's still running as hard in the final moments of games that Geelong has narrowly won and having impact. And that's fresh in umpires' minds when they sit down to vote.
What I will say about the Brownlow, I sat down the other day. It is as wide open a Brownlow as there's ever been. So coming off last year where we had 40 votes and whatever it was.
45,
38
came second.
Right now, the leader would not be on more than 13 or 14 votes max, whoever that is, whether it's Jordan Dawson. I don't even think Nick Dacos has got 13 votes and he's the favourite right now. I think, Daisy, this is a wide open Brownlow medal count.
That's good then. A bit of an old-fashioned count.
100%. There'll be
because
a lot
it got
of guys.
silly. 45 was
this
silly.
This count at round 10, there'll be 8 players within a couple of votes of each other.
Of his 9 games, he's had 30 plus on 5 occasions, and the 4 that he's missed getting to 30, 25, 28, 28 and 29.
He could have polled, I did the numbers, he could have polled in 7 of the 10 games.
And he's missed
9 games.
He's missed 1, 7 of the 9, sorry, and he's only had probably 1 clear best on ground, but he's been very high.
That's an issue.
So it's whether he gets 3s, 2s or 1s is the big difference.
Fascinating conversation.
Flying.
Daisy, in the wake of Luke Jackson's form, Fremantle will have second thoughts about selecting Sean Darcy once he returns to fitness.
No, I think the fitness, that's Fugazi. Yeah, that's the negative. I think the fitness is the key word there. You need to make sure that bloke is at peak fitness and then he can go out and perform. I think at the moment when you had got him playing somewhat second fiddle to a Luke Jackson, who is a bit of that unicorn in how he can cover the ground and how he moves, Darcy needs to be at peak fitness because when he's not, he does look slow. He looks slow when he's at peak fitness, but when he's not, he looks like he's really struggling to cover the ground. So I think that one's Fugazi.
Joey, despite the 4 losses, the Bulldogs have never looked this good under Luke Beveridge.
I'll say fair dinkum because of recency bias. I can't think of 2016 or 2021, but they have had periods where they have looked $1 million. We've seen this with these teams in the past. Their best, over the years has been as good as anybody's. They just tend to have periods where they lose games that we all are surprised that they probably shouldn't. So I will say right now that is fair income.
Damo, the Gold Coast Suns deal with the Northern Territory government goes through to 2026. They should extend it immediately for another 10 years.
That's fair income, and add one, maybe two games to that deal per year, because they cannot be beaten in that part of the world. 8-0, as you say, and it's been a godsend for them, because it also came at a good time this year just to continue their good form, particularly against Hawthorn most recently.
In all seriousness, should they renegotiate to play maybe in 3 games and ask if that could be the case? They get more money from it, they win there, and the AFL you would think would be okay with that to continue to promote the game.
I believe they would. I mean, it is a region they have identified as one that they want to explore more meaningfully than they have to this point. So yeah, and whether you'd have it all in the one hit, as they have done recently, like this was rounds 9 and 10, whether it be 9, 10, 11, or whether you have one later in the year. But yeah, I think it would be a conversation that Mark Evans, who ultimately is about the money as much as the form, now that he's got the coach in that he wanted, would be considering that.
Both of those games were high-quality games of football.
Yeah,
they were. Western Bulldogs and the Hawks, they were great games of footy.
Yep.
Daisy, North Melbourne won the battle, but the weekend showed that Richmond is ahead in the rebuild war.
Oh, no, Fugazi. Geez, that's a pretty good question, actually.
These your questions,
not,
Will?
Not that your other
well
ones have been below up.
Better than normal,
this is pretty good. No, I think North Melbourne, in a longer term, which is the rebuild sense, are further down the track. But what Richmond are doing in the shorter term and the way they're playing, just hard, honest, competitive football. They just have a red-hot crack, which gives you a chance at some stage. It's just a class that probably prevails in the end. So, no, I'll say Fugazi, but I'm loving everything Richmond are doing.
Damo, Jack Higgins has one hand on his first All-Australian jacket.
He might have one hand on a Coleman medal too, the way he's going. Fair dinkum in terms of what is going to have to be judged to this point of the season. You cannot do much more in the modern game than what he's doing as a small forward. And even the 5 goals he kicked in the most recent game, which was a loss in Perth, it just underlined, I think, his freakish football brain and his freakish football skills when he gets it, and with time and space.
And it's more than just goals. There's a perception he's just a downhill skier, kicks goals. No, he's an assist man. He's high up in assists, and he's a tackle and pressure player under Ross Lyon. He's really done improved that facet of his game. So he's one of the great small forwards of the season. Yes,
Ross. Yep. No, he said the tackle. Yep. Yeah. He said the assist. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Yeah. No, perfect. Ross said you covered it off.
Well just read that right.
Yeah.
Got that. Yep.
Joey, Bulldogs players should have been more aware of how close Bailey-Dale was to 50 disposals and played accordingly.
Yes, that is fair income. You've seen the vision. It was Bailey Williams that had the kick on the boundary line. He had Bailey-Dale 10 metres to his left for the easiest of touches, and he didn't give it. And then afterwards, Bailey-Dale said, I was on 49, and Bailey Williams put his hand to his and said, sorry, mate. That one. Sorry, mate.
Sorry, mate.
So, yes, that is bad. I'm blaming Bailey Williams in particular.
Days, did you notice a little bit of kickins.com kick into Bailey-Dale's game?
100%. We love that, though. We love if you're going to get to 50, you're not going to get them all. Well, not in the modern game anyway.
Were you proud of that aspect, Joey?
Good on him.
And Daisy, Tim Solly got what he deserved for asking Robbo this question on the weekend.
It's a free kick to Harms. What's the energy like boundary side, Robbo? Bob Jones Earmarts?
The Bombers pretty flat. Dogs are up and about. Jesus. Timmy, give us a spout. For the Lord's sake. What do you reckon?
Last time I forgot you, Robbo.
Robbo shooting him down.
You Robbo.
I'm confused. Robbo.
Pissing down. That was a good time. 10 goals to 1, though, Robbo.
Timmy Solly, what do you think?
Timmy, please.
Essendon's energy's flying.
Flat, Bulldogs high.
All the round 11 predictions and tips up next on the Triple M Midweek Rub with Josie.
Joey,
you got
Nearly got a turnover. 5 minutes before three-quarter time. Concentrate.
Triple M's Midweek Rub. You can catch all the games across Triple M on the Listener app this weekend, starting with Geelong taking on the Bulldogs at GMHBA Stadium down the road. Joey, who are we thinking?
Spoken a lot about the build-up to this, the Bailey Smith Cup. We all love the way the Western Bulldogs are playing. Damo and I generally are in the same boat here. Hard to tip against the Cats. They're back in form. They're flying, particularly at home. I still think Geelong will win.
Yeah, you tip the Cats for the past 20 years and you win 72% of the time, and the Cats in this one.
Yeah, I'm loving what the Western Bulldogs are doing. The Cats are a little bit banged up after the weekend. They lose a few. It should be a cracking game. Am I brave enough to tip the Western Bulldogs against the Cats at Geelong?
Go on.
I am not. I'll be sticking with the Cats. Just the GMHBA factor.
Yep.
Friday night, Dreamtime at the G. Essendon taking on Richmond. Damo?
Seriously, the curfew issue with Noah Bolter and the concussion issue with Tom Lynch has swayed me to tip Essendon. Otherwise, I would have been quietly confident on the Tigers. So Essendon without confidence.
These are the teams Essendon beat, so they'll beat Richmond.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp. And I think it would have been a lot closer with the two players you mentioned there. But this is a game that Essendon should just find a way to win. Zero confidence, but I'll be tipping them.
Then the early start on Saturday, one of the earliest games I think I've ever seen, 12:35 p.m. at Marvel Stadium. Carlton taking on the Giants, Daisy.
Well, I can't believe that Carlton have gone up favourites in this one, which seems bizarre, but generally these sort of things don't be, the algorithm spits them out for a reason. I think the GWS Giants, although they're not playing great, nor are the Blues, they should just be winning this one. If you line the sides up with class, I think the Giants have more of it, so I'll be tipping them.
I'm in the same zone as I was in 2023 with Carlton. I'm just going to keep tipping them because it eventually got right in 23. I'm not convinced it will this year, but I just feel they're, to Joey's point a moment ago about being in front of, I think they've been in front of 8 or 9 games out of the 10 they've played. So I'm going to stick with the Blues, but for the third game in a row already, not confident.
It is really with Carlton how you want to look at them, whether it is glass half full or the glass half empty, because I'm going to present some stuff tonight. They are not far away, Carlton, except for the fact they can't finish their work inside 50. But then the other argument is, well, maybe they can't finish their work inside 50 because they lack class. I'm still confused about them. I'm not sure. I'm going to stick fat. I think Carlton can win this and get on a roll because the next 4 after this one are pretty favourable. So I wouldn't be surprised if they win 4 of the next 5.
Are they number one for generating inside 50s, but number 18?
They're 18th for converting their inside 50s.
So they get a stack of them, but they're just horrible. And when you think of the Mackay, Kerno down there is just no excuse or reason for that.
Does that reinforce the problem that a lot of people think they've got, Joey, the lack of class small forward? Is that the biggest
and
issue?
ball use coming in?
To be honest, doing the research this week, I actually think the Kerno-Mackay issue is the problem because I'm going to show vision where they get the ball up near the middle of the ground and all they want to do is turn around and get it into them. So they just kick it. But then all of a sudden numbers convert, swarm, and it doesn't work. So I think there's a balance between trying to get it to your big boys but doing it at the right time in the right place and not just wheeling and kicking it in.
The next game on the Saturday at 4:15 is the Hawks hosting the Lions at the MCG, Joey.
Yeah, this is a good one. This is tough to tip.
Huge, this.
I'm leaning towards Brisbane because of what we spoke about earlier. Maybe a bit of a rocket up the backside after the draw to North Melbourne and getting beaten by Melbourne. I think they're a good enough team to cop a little clip and bounce back. Bounce back factor.
I'm the same, Joey. And I do subscribe to the lethargy in the last 2 weeks. They drew against North Melbourne, lost to Melbourne, and I think that loss to Melbourne gave Chris Fagan the excuse in his own mind to give them a bit of a barrel, which he had refrained, I believe, from doing till that moment. And I feel it'll just sharpen them up in a significant way. And I like what they had been doing until that moment against North Melbourne.
I'm going to be tipping the Hawks, I think, and this is, you need to watch the first quarter. If the Hawks start really well, I think they can be good enough to continue to stretch. If the Lions are in front at quarter time, that would be changing how I look at it. But I think the Hawks can do a little bit of a Collingwood on them. Start really well, apply maximum pressure, and then make the ground big and see if they actually have the want to defend, which they didn't on the weekend.
Damo, your Kangas taking on Collingwood Saturday night at Marvel Stadium.
Weirdly enough, I believe they're a chance, but I will be tipping Collingwood. No, I mean, the bookmakers would suggest they're no chance, but I feel they are a chance, but Collingwood for me.
Were they 10 goals up in this fixture last year?
This is the one
9
where
goals
60,
up, 54 points up at the same stadium.
I love Damo with his rose-coloured glasses on in North Melbourne. I like it.
Hasn't
Damo.
just gone back into a honeymoon period.
I love North. I'm on the North Melbourne train, but I can't see them beating Collingwood, so no, the Pies win this.
A host of Pies potentially out, though. There's a
Side-bottom's going to be rested.
Side-bottom will be rested, and then Moores is still a question mark.
Is Dacos sore, you reckon?
Nicholas
Dacos.
Yeah, he is. I think that's been pretty evident for a little while now. He's had that hip pointer or the tight hip flexor, whatever that may be. I think the Pies should win, so I'll tip them, but I've got that little same weird feeling.
Jamie Elliott's sick and Lockie Schultz missing training as well this week, so be a few outs. Then we have the other Saturday night game, Walyalup or the Dockers taking on Yartapulti or Port Adelaide. Daisy?
Again, Fremantle confuse me as much as Port Adelaide do. Just when you think Port Adelaide is maybe trustworthy, they throw in an absolute stinker. And just when you think Freo are absolutely done, they come out and win a game that you can't see happening.
It was one of the performances of the year last week, wasn't it? What they did.
And the fact that Port Adelaide ended up getting beaten by a plenty after being in the game until about the 5-minute mark of the third quarter. It's at Optus Stadium, so I'll tip Freo.
Yeah, I'm tipping Fremantle.
Fremantle for me.
On Sunday, Kawana versus Walich Marawa, or the Crows against the Eagles, Joey.
Adelaide will win this one.
Crom for me.
Adelaide for me too.
Then it is Nam versus the Sydney Swans on Sunday, Damo.
I'm going to go with the Swans on the back of what they did in the last quarter last week against Carlton. It was a bit of 2024 Swans about that. Their good players had been good to that point, but then they took off some high-end risk kicks, which paid off. And I just reckon it might be something that they can now carry into this particular game against Melbourne. So Swans for me.
I'm not sure if concussion and the tribunal is going to work in the favour of Sydney or against, because that forward line now has nobody, but arguably before the weekend it didn't really have that many in that was worthwhile kicking to.
Amati being given 3 weeks.
Amati and Francis being out with the concussion as well.
McInerney got a week too.
So I will
and Malikan already out suspended.
Well, that is a lot, isn't it? No, I'll stick with the Swans.
I'm rating the way Simon Goodwin's coaching. I think all they've got to
You're back on board.
all they have to do is stop two. All they have to do is
Careful.
stop 2 players. They have to find a way to slow down the Heaney and Warner influence, and they will win this game. Now that's easier said than done. Carlton couldn't do it, but I think Melbourne can win this game at the MCG. Absolutely.
I'm with you on the Demons. Their past 5 weeks where they've won 4, lost only to Hawthorn, and they were equal at 3/4 time effectively. They've had a really good patch.
Yeah, their forward half games elite. That's one of the best forward half games, turning the ball over in the front half in the competition in the last 6 weeks.
And then Daisy to round out round 11, Euro-Rocal, the Saints taking on the Gold Coast Suns at Marvel.
Gold Coast Suns should win this game, and this is a real step in the right direction if they do. I think I can sit there after this and go, Ross Lyon's going to throw some weird things at you. We know that Damien Hardwick hates Marvel Stadium, but if they can come down and navigate their way through whatever Ross Lyon and the Saints throw at them is a step that they are on the right path, and I think they are, so they should be winning.
Yeah, I think Gold Coast keep ticking boxes. They've ticked almost every box this year. They'll beat St Kilda. Jack McRae's going to be a big out. He does play a huge role in that midfield that's already pretty thin, as it is Damo. So against this Gold Coast midfield that's airborne at the moment, I just think it's a bridge too far.
I'm going to tip the Suns, obviously coming off 2 big emotional games too. Western Bulldogs into Hawthorn. That was last Thursday. They've had a nice break. Provided they can get over that mental, I think, let down, having got through that period, they should win. But I do think it's a danger game.
This is a trust-building game. I think everybody who looks at the Gold Coast Suns and go, yeah, we think you're there. If you tick this box, we go, okay, there's another step and we can start to trust you.
This is a Ross Lyon masterclass.
It is. It shapes up as that. Yeah.
Ross Lyon will find a way to clamp the Gold Coast.
Yes, mate. Masterclass? Yeah, he said that. Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Speak to you next week, Ross, mate.
Catch the Ross Lyon Masterclass and every game across round 11 on the Triple M and Listener app starting tomorrow night with the Thursday Rub ahead of that game down at Geelong against the Cats and the Bulldogs with Jack Heverin, Kate McCarthy, Isaac Smith and Jay Clark. This has been Triple M's Midweek Rub.
Well done.
Yeah, well done, Wilbur.
This has been